What's up everyone, Kriddle here, and I wanted to go over my thoughts on the best way you should level coming up to Season 1. You're going to be starting over from scratch. We're not going to have, characters to power boost you or whatever and run dungeons with you. You're not going to have legendary aspects that you can just be able to throw on your character super fast, and you're going to need to basically start over from scratch. So I've gone through every single one of the classes up to at least level 33. It's my lowest on the Druid. I do have a 25 sorcerer here, but I have a level 100 sorcerer, so I feel like I know that class fairly well. But basically, I want to kind of explain what I did and how I got there with each build in particular, and then what I did XP-wise to get to that location, and kind of help you guys through that a little bit, since I know that it can be a bit daunting, and there's a lot of builds out there that are saying this is your best leveling build and this is your best in-game build and all that kind of stuff. So these builds, before we even start looking at each one in particular, I'm going to go over a few little things. These builds are not going to be, you don't need legendaries. You're not going to need to have any specific gear, anything like that. It's just going to be putting stat points or skill points where they need to go, and then grabbing whatever gear is higher item level or item power and going ahead and equipping that. That's going to work for you up until about level 35 or 40, which is where I got to here. At that point, you're going to want to start looking at specific pieces and making sure you have the things that work for your build, because at around level 45 you can then jump in and go to Nightmare, and these builds are not going to be perfect for getting to Nightmare, but they do everything that you need to do leveling up without having to worry about grabbing that legendary aspect or hoping that you get the right legendary aspect and all that kind of stuff. So like these legendary aspects that I have on here, I don't even use. They just happen to be higher item power. So I just look at an item and I'm comparing them. Item power, I just go ahead and equip it, and then I junk that one. This one right here is a lower item power, so I just junk that one. I don't really look at the stats on there because, again, it doesn't matter at this level. Later on, it will definitely matter. So look up some builds or however you want to do that later. But for now, we're going to start with the Druid. So with the Druid, this is the build that I like to go with. So I do a max into Claw, and I build out to Wild Claw. You can also do Poison or Fierce Claw with the Poison if you want to. Either one of those is fine. But again, doesn't matter because we're not going to be keeping this permanently. The reason I put in 5 points here, almost every build I put in the max points in your basic attack, and then I pick a core skill and I put the max points into that as well. I do that because you're going to want that damage up front in the beginning, and these skills basically just work well together. You can do Maul if you want to. I just found it to be a little bit too slow for me. I wanted something that was single target because I'm killing all the things AoE with Pulverize and with my Poison down here. So basically you want to grab Claw, Pulverize. I do get Earthen Bulwark just so I can have the Unstoppable and an additional barrier so I'm not constantly using potions. Come down here, we're going to use Poison Creeper. This is what's going to be most of your area clear of all the trash. So you're just going to click that anytime you're surrounded by a bunch of trash. That'll take care of it for you. You don't need to focus on that anymore. I do go with the additional 3 seconds just in case, but it's probably not going to be needed at this low level. And I grab Hurricane just to have an additional damage going around, and it gives me that vulnerable damage, allows me to get that vulnerable on there, because you are going to be doing already a lot of overpower from this. With your Pulverize every 12 seconds, as long as you remain healthy, you're going to be able to do overpower. So you're going to be able to multiply your damage out by overpower and multiply it out with your vulnerable here, which is just going to give you tons of damage. If you also crit on top of that, more damage. Look into damage buckets if you don't know how that works, but this is just a quick overview. I do also like to grab Trample. That's just a movement speed. I like to have some sort of movement ability on every one of my characters whenever I'm leveling them. So Trample is what I grab there. It also has Unstoppable to get you out of those situations where you're frozen or stunned for 3 seconds in the beginning. And when you're frozen or stunned early in the game, a boss can just sit there and 1 or 2 shot you, and it's kind of annoying. So that's the reason I have those. Also, I grabbed the bonus spirit because spirit generation isn't the easiest to do in the beginning, or energy, or any of the other generations of your spenders. I then come down here and we get bestial rampage, and the reason I get that is because I'm using both the werewolf ability and I'm using a werebear ability. So if you actually use the werewolf ability, you can hit about 7 times with claw, which will get you enough spirit to cast pulverize twice, and you cast pulverize 2 times, and then you trample once and just dodge in or trample into things. That should be 2.5 seconds, which will get you the second buff. Once you do that 1 round, you should be able to maintain both of those buffs for the 25% attack speed and the 30% increased damage for those 15 seconds. And since trample has a 13 or 14 second cooldown, you'll be able to do that again and maintain it basically every 15 seconds. You can get that bonus damage back up. So you can continue to claw at bosses, which I feel like does a little bit more damage than maul because it attacks faster. And again, you can go with the poison if you want to. So that's pretty much my druid build that I recommend. Of course, you can take that or leave it however you want. As far as boons, I go with the attack speed here. I don't have these boons unlocked up here. But if I did, I would probably go with either crowd control, impairing, or gain 10 spirit. Probably one of those two. But you just have to kind of grab those as you get your offerings. And then I don't even have this down here unlocked yet because again, we're still leveling. But swooping attacks for the attack speed increase. Lucky hit damage has a 15% chance to restore 10 spirit. You're not going to get a lot of lucky hits early in the game, but it's nice to have that 10 extra spirit whenever it does come proc. And then critical strikes when shape-shifting skills will heal you. So you'll be doing a lot of that, attacking with your 2 different shape-shifting quite often. So hopefully you get a little bit of healing out of that, which will keep you topped off for those for that healthy bonus that you get from some of these other abilities. And then if you look down here, I just grab, some of these. Once I get all the skills that I want, I then come back and I grab some of these that just kind of help me a little bit more. I'm probably going to get some basic skill, generate spirit. I probably get that eventually, but I think I'm going to get the run speed first just to help me move around a little bit faster. This right here, it's going to mean that I can swing 6 times instead of 7 times to get enough spirit to do 2 pulverizes. So I mean, it's not really a big deal to me anyway, early game. So that's pretty much how I recommend playing the druid. Let's go ahead and log out. We're going to check out the barbarian next. Barbarian, I like to use the upheaval build. It's my favorite kind of go-to for early game because it just completely destroys large groups of little monsters, and then you can also use it to take out the bosses as well. So for our barbarian, we're going to come up here to the top. I like to go with Frenzy. The reason I do Frenzy is because you get stacks for upheaval through Frenzy, and it's better, in my opinion, single target damage. Some people like to go with Lunge because it kind of jumps forward and it can essentially evade, in a sense, towards your enemy. As long as there's an enemy to hit, you can lunge towards them. But I go with Frenzy because 1 click of Frenzy is 2 attacks. 1 left hand, 1 right hand, or 1 main hand, off hand, whatever you want to call it. And that gives you, so 5 Frenzies gives you the 10 stacks that you need, whereas you need to do 10 lunges to get those 10 stacks for upheaval if you want to get that 30% bonus on there. So that's what I like to do with this. Again, I'm maxing out at 5 here and 5 with the upheaval just for that damage. I do grab some of these extra bonus ones, but again, I grab these after I've done all of my skills. But this is just going to give you some vulnerability, a chance of vulnerability to get that bonus damage once you get to the higher levels around 35, 40 in that area, which will get you to level 45 to 50, hopefully, so you can start getting that sacred gear and then start building out your character from there. I do grab Rally Cry and Enhanced Rally Cry and then Tactical Rally Cry to generate Fury. So I do that, and then I grab this down here for War Cry as well, and I go ahead and max this one out. And I max this one out so that I get the more damage dealt through the Berserker and all that. So it's not really the Berserker, but you get more damage dealt 24% for 7 seconds. So that's why I max this one out. And I don't max this one out because it's not really as needed. You're just going to get more resource bonus, generation bonus with that if you put more points into it. So it's not really worth it. I also come down here and I get the heals for the shout, so I don't have to use as many potions. And then I grab leap because I like to have some sort of movement ability, like I did with the druid. I like to have trample. With the barbarian, I use leap. And then you come down here, you can grab some of these things just as you get to the higher levels. Once you've unlocked the skills, you grab some of these. And I do come down here and I get unconstrained, so that increases your berserk's maximum duration by 5 seconds. And since you're going to be using Warcry here, you're going to be getting that berserk. And hopefully you can keep that berserk going as long as possible with the maximum amount of damage. It's just going to help you clear things a bit faster. I do also recommend Unbridled Rage, but I don't recommend getting that early on until you have the correct build and you're going to be, using legendaries and all that kind of stuff. This is probably your best later game, so 45 to 50. You're probably going to want to switch to this once you start getting that more in-game build. As far as expertise, just, use whatever you want at this point. I like to go with the two-handed sword just because it adds bleeding to my direct damage. It's just a little bit extra damage for you. The rest of these, in my opinion, are not really worth grabbing early on. Like increased crit chance, you're not really doing, enough to really get that increased crit chance to benefit you and all that. So I just like to do the bleed. It's just a little extra damage that you can do. So that is that. Next up, we are going to look at, I think Necromancer is next on the list. It is. So the Necromancer, I don't like the Necromancer, to be honest with you. But the best build that I found for it early game is to use Bone Spear mixed with Corpse Explosion and Corpse Tendrils. So basically what I do is I use Bone Splinters just to kind of hit things and build up some essence. I then throw down Corpse Tendrils. As soon as I get a corpse down, I throw down Corpse Tendrils on it, which pulls everything in. I then do a Corpse Explosion, but I do build that up and make that to where it does the miasma damage, the darkness damage, and then I start hitting things with Bone Spear. So let's take a look at how I have that set up. This one is one that I do not put all the points into the basic, and I'll show you why here in a minute, but I just have the basic to generate essence. That's the only reason for it. It's not there to really do any damage. I do max out my Bone Spear, which is my core ability, my main spender. So we get that, and then we come down here to Corpse Explosion, come here to Enhanced, and then Blighted Corpse Explosion. The reason I go with that, like I said, is I can just throw down, every time there's a corpse that appears, I pop another one of those, and it just drains the health of all the enemies because of the Corpse Tendrils, which pulls everything in. I do also grab 1 point into Blood Mist. The only reason I grab Blood Mist here is because it's the only way to get out of CC for the Necromancer that I know of in the game, at least through skills this way. You might be able to get something through legendary powers and stuff later. I'm not looking at any of that because when you first start a character for the season, you're not going to have all that legendary stuff. You're not going to be able to do all that. So I like to have this just to get out of those situations. Something that I didn't realize everybody didn't know, when you use this, you click it once and it goes for 3 seconds, makes you immune, you move around. But if you just want to get out of something, be immune, to get out of something, make you unstoppable, you click it once and then you click it again immediately and it cancels it, so then you can continue to damage things. That's usually how I use it, rather than run around for 3 seconds doing very minimal damage, which is kind of pointless. Let's see. I do also use Decrepify. The reason I use Decrepify is for just a little bonus defense, I guess. So it slows the enemies and it it makes them take 20%, or makes me take 20% less damage from the enemies that I decrepify. It also has a chance to stun enemies and things like that, so it kind of helps out. And you can get cooldowns faster, so enemies hit while affected with decrepify have a 15% chance to reduce your cooldowns by 1%. So that's why I like to go with this. You're going to be stacking up enemies using the corpse tendrils. It's going to pull them all in. Then you're going to use corpse explosion, going to be doing damage to them, and then you're going to be using bone spear. So between all of those things, you will be getting a few procs of your lucky hit, because these are actually fairly high lucky hit chances. This one being 55% per bone spear, this one being 44%. This is obviously over the duration of the 6 seconds, so sometime in that 6 seconds you're going to get a 44% chance, and this is 22% when it pulls things in. Also, the corpse tendrils, which we're about to get down to here, I make it so that it makes things vulnerable for 3 seconds to get you that vulnerable damage early in the game that you may not be able to pull from somewhere else, because it's just a multiplier that allows you to do that bonus damage. I do then grab, once I've got all the skills that I wanted, I do grab some of these down here. So when a corpse is formed, oh, this is from your minion skills. I actually don't even need this one because I was using this one in the beginning. I can probably get rid of that now. But when I use some of these down here for some bonus bone skills, and come down here, critical strike to damage enemies increases, because I'm going to be doing, to vulnerable enemies, because I'll be getting most things vulnerable. And then sacrificing my minions, which is why I don't know why I didn't get rid of that, but sacrificing my minions gives me more damage, or more, is it damage here? Increases their sacrifice bonus by 60%. So the bonuses, which I'll look at in a second. And then we come down here to our Shadow Blight, which just gives me a little bit of extra damage every 10th time you do shadow damage, which you're going to be doing with your corpse explosion, doing the darkness damage. So it'll be ticking every 10 times. You're going to be getting a bonus damage on some enemy. So that's basically how that works. I look at Book of the Dead. I don't use any of the minions after about level 5. Like, you might start out in the beginning of the game using it, but if you have all of your bonus skill points and things like that, which you'll probably do, you probably have to start out with like at least 5 or 6, if not the full 10, from doing your renown. Then you might want to start out using the minions, but as soon as you can, I would say get rid of the minions and sacrifice them. I do bonus crit chance here for the skeletons. For the mages, we do bonus vulnerable damage, because we do get the vulnerability from our tendrils. And then for the golem, I use this one as I level up. I just move this one down, and I get the increased critical strike damage eventually. I think at level 32 is when this actually unlocks, and then I just keep going to about level 45. At this point, around level 45, you're going to want to start doing your legendary stuff. Next up is the rogue, and with the rogue, I found twisting blades to be ridiculously overpowered and probably should be nerfed, but that's a whole other story. But that's what I recommend using for leveling the rogue. It's just ridiculously easy. You run around and hit things with puncture to make it vulnerable, and then you right click for your twisting blades 2 times, because you have it's 30 energy, and so you could possibly do it up to 3 times, just depending on how much energy you have. Do that, and then by the time that your twisting blades goes off, everything on the screen will be dead. It's pretty much what my experience is. I do have dash to get around faster, because I like to have those, and I do have shadow step, which is my get out of bad things, my unstoppable ability. And then I have shadow imbuement, which I use with my twisting blades. Be careful though, because these can also be imbued. So if you hit shadow imbuement and then you dash, you will use up those shadow imbuement skills. So you want to hit shadow imbuement and then hit twisting blades. You can go with poison if you want to, which is another good one. But I've found that things die fast enough with shadow imbuement, and it does AoE damage, and you can actually use that down here to get your energy back. So anytime you kill something with that shadow damage, you get 30 energy. So that allows you to continue doing that. So puncture, again, 5 points into that. I then build that out to fundamental puncture. We come down here to twisting blades. I do get 5 points into that, and we get advanced twisting blades. Let's see, down here we get 1 point into shadow step, and then go for disciplined shadow step, and then 1 point into dash, and we go down to methodical dash. I do grab the weapon mastery here just because it gives me bonus damage, whether I'm using daggers or swords. Doesn't really matter, because you're still getting that bonus damage, 15% to healthy enemies or 9% to all damage. You know, in the beginning, you're going to be swapping your weapons so much, it doesn't matter which one of those you're looking for. Down here, I do put 1 point into Dark Shroud, and then we get the Subverting Dark Shroud for the movement speed. That's mainly the reason I use it. I don't get the Dark Shroud to reduce the damage, but that is kind of nice. But I'm mostly getting it for the points in movement speed, so we can stack that up. So you get 4% movement speed per active shroud, which is 5, so you can get up to 20% active movement speed right there. And then you get Shadow Imbue. I do max that out again for the damage, and we come up here to Blended Shadow Imbuement, which again makes things vulnerable. So you can make like the one boss vulnerable with your puncture. You get right in on it, you hit it with the 3 blades, hopefully 2 of them hit so that it's vulnerable. Then you stab it twice with or 3 times with your twisting blades, which will be imbued because you're going to imbue, then stab it 3 times. 2 of those which will be imbued because you're going to get 2 out of the shadow imbuement. Hopefully that explodes and blows up everything with the shadow damage, giving you your energy back, and then you can continue to do twisting blades from that point. You see how that works. And then you're also going to make things vulnerable again and keep things vulnerable until it's all dead. So that's the point of how that's going to work. Imbue skills gain critical strike chance. Just once you have your skills maxed out, start grabbing these things. And then down here, I do have Lucky Hit to gain energy. If I get a Lucky Hit, great. If I don't, that's okay too. But it's, a Lucky Hit chance, which is a 20% chance if you get a Lucky Hit. So it's a chance upon a chance, which makes it kind of minimal, but it can happen. I do also come down here to Momentum, just because I feel like this is the best option. Once you get 3 stacks of it, you're annihilating everything. If you want to, you could also come down here to Close Quarters and grab that. That's another good one. And then Victimize potentially could be good because you will make things vulnerable, but I don't like to get Victimized because I'm already doing enough AoE damage with my Shadow Imbuement. So that is how I like to do my Rogue. I do specialization combo points, and I try to do 3 punctures, and then I do my Shadow Imbuement, and then I try to do 3 twisting blades, and then I go back to puncture until I can get more twisting blades. As long as I can keep doing my twisting blades, though, I'm just going to spam that and burn all of my energy using twisting blades and just annihilate everything on the screen. So that's basically how that works. Last but not least, we're going to be looking at the Sorcerer. Sorcerer is a different one. I find that a lot of people aren't able to find decent builds with it. We'll look at my 100 Sorcerer, and I'll show you the build that I prefer. There's a couple different ways you can actually start up with the Sorcerer, depending on what you want to do. Since I played it a bunch, I know a few different builds that work for me. With the other classes, I don't know as much about them, so I was only able to find the one build. But for the Sorcerer, I like to start out with Arc Lash early game, so level 1 to 10 or so, even up to level 20 or 30. I like to build up Arc Lash a lot and put it into Glinting Arc Lash. That seems to be the best option for the Sorcerer. From there, you can go a couple different ways. You could go with Fireball if you want to. I prefer Chain Lightning. So I'm going to say go Chain Lightning. Come down here and get the Destructive Chain Lightning, which gives you crackling energy when it crits. You're not going to be critting a whole lot in the beginning, but you will be critting. So you will be getting those crackling energies, which is just a little extra damage that you're going to be able to do to the enemies surrounding you. So max those two out, the Arc Lash and Chain Lightning. I do say put 1 point into Teleport. Again, this is just going to make you unstoppable so you can get out of those freeze and stun situations. And also just to help you travel around a little bit more. Put 1 point into Ice Armor and then get the Enhanced Ice Armor. This will just give you more mana regeneration so that you can use Chain Lightning more. I would also recommend getting Frost Nova and maxing out Frost Nova. Right now mine's not maxed out because this is my in-game build, but in the beginning I say get Frost Nova, max it out, and put it on your bar. So basically what you're going to have are those 5 abilities. You're going to be going with Arc Lash, Chain Lightning, Teleport, Ice Armor, and Frost Nova, and that's it. That's what you're going to have on your abilities down here for most of the leveling process up to about level 40 or so. Later on, you'll be able to switch that to something a little bit better, but that'll get you easily to level 40. And then you can start putting points if you want to into the barriers and what else was good. Oh, Glass Cannon obviously is a kind of go-to for everybody, so I would start putting points into Glass Cannon. Once you get down here to the bottom, there's a couple of different things you can do down here, which is Shatter. This is one I really like to use early game because it works really well with your Frost Nova. Once you have Frost Nova and you have Shatter, your AoE damage just goes through the roof. Everything gets destroyed in an instant. As soon as you're going to Frost Nova it, one thing's going to die, then everything's going to die, and it just kind of chains together. So that's pretty much all you need to do with those skills. And then for your enhancements down here, enchantments, sorry, you're going to want to do, if you want to make it easy for you, you're going to want to put 1 point into Firebolt, and then put Firebolt down here, and then you're going to put 1 point into Fireball, at least 1 point. You can actually max out Fireball. That's another way you can do this. I only need to put 1 point into it, but for the first like 5 to 10 levels, you might want to do Arc Lash, 1 point into Firebolt, and then Fireball and max that out, just so you can have these enchantments. Like level 15, you can put the Firebolt in here, or Fireball, and then level 35, put the other one in here. I would recommend doing Firebolt first for the fire damage and going with Chain Lightning, and then once you get to 35, you can put Fireball in here, and it's just going to give you extra fire damage. And if you want to at that point, pump up your Fireball damage so that it just does more when it explodes, but you shouldn't need it because your Frost Nova and Shatter should take care of it. If you don't go that route, some of the things that I recommend is to put Frost Nova in. This is my in-game build, and that's basically a full conjuration build, and it works great. I love having Frost Nova here because then you can save points. Here you can actually put 1 point into there, but then you need to invest heavily into your conjurations down here. So anyway, to recap the Sorcerer, I would max out Arc Lash, get to Glinting Arc Lash. I would grab all of Chain Lightning, one of each of these 3, put them on your bar, and then get these bonuses here. Go with Glass Cannon, and then once you get your level 15, unlock it, put in Firebolt, and then once you get to level 35, I would put in Fireball, honestly, just to get up to the higher levels. And once you get up to 45, you're going to want to start building your main build. So hopefully that helps you guys out. Those are just my personal opinions of starter builds that are easy to use. They don't require a lot of gear, and you can blow through level 1 to 40-ish fairly quickly so that you can actually start getting those legendaries, because legendaries don't really drop until 25 plus, and then they drop very seldomly. Once you get to about 30 to 35, they start dropping more, and then once you're in your 40s, you'll probably have a few that you can play around with, but even at that point, you may not have enough to make your in-game build that you're going to be able to go into Nightmare and Torment levels at that point. So anyway, that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully see you next time. Bye!